Hello, everyone. This is episode 3 of Here Comes the Pitch, a podcast about pitching story ideas. I'm your host, Derk Harron, and in today's episode, I will be pitching a superhero story called The Helmet to my guest, Russ Kazmierczak. I would compare this story to the movie The Fly by David Cronenberg and the graphic novel The Dark Knight Strikes Again. Well, without further ado, here comes the pitch.
Check. Oh, yeah, I can. Wow. Wow, I sound great.
All right, well, thanks for being on the show, Russ.
My pleasure, Dirk. Thanks for asking me.
Yeah, for the pitch that I want to do with you, it's something that like I developed since I was like a little kid. I would even go back as far as maybe 9-10 years old.
Wow. Okay.
So, and it's something that's like evolved ever since. There are these comic book characters that I've created over time, and like I kind of created my own universe of characters, and I think that you're the perfect person to like pitch this idea to, since you've been doing your own comic for how many years now?
Since 2010.
2010.
I've been self-publishing Amazing Arizona Comics, but I started writing and self-publishing with a buddy in Southern California since 2001. So it's been a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you've been doing it for a long time now, and I like, Speed Cameron, which is like kind of the pivotal character of all the characters that are in your stories.
He's the flagship character,
yeah,
if you will.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Like, and like, what issue are you on now with Amazing Arizona?
I'm in the mid-30s.
Mid-30s?
Right now. I'm actually working on, like, 2 issues at the same time, which is fun and frustrating.
Oh, I'm sure. And, like, that's always something that I've aspired to, was to, like, come up with a comic book series. I think I'm just a little scatterbrained to the point where I haven't been able to, like, focus all my attention towards, like, a project. I'm always like in the middle of a couple commissions, and
sure.
And I don't know, trying to make some money that like with my artwork, but also my wife, she's been like a big inspiration for me when like getting back into artwork, because there was just kind of like a dark period where like I stopped like trying to do art for a living, and I just got comfortable with like my regular job, and I was just like I still doodle and everything,
sure.
But I never thought it would go anywhere. And then it was my wife before when we were just dating, that she saw my talent, and she was just like, you really need to try to do something with this, and then that's why I went back to school and ended up getting a degree in comic sequential art.
Very cool.
And but
who'd have thought that would have been a degree?
I know,
when you were 9.
That was the thing, was that she told me, like, since I had already put years of work towards getting a degree, I just never was able to like focus on something. Sure. Then I was looking at different community colleges, and then I saw this associate's degree program with Phoenix College that was about, it was a degree in comic sequential art. And then when I found out who was teaching it, most of the classes, I found out it was Tony Parker, who's, I
Did you just drop that name? It was Tony Parker. Anyway.
Well, I think that he's done quite a bit of stuff for Dark Horse, and he just recently did a series for Image as well, and now he just scored. I don't know. He just announced it. I don't know if you know, but like he just scored God of War, which Dark Horse bought the rights to the video game to make it into a comic book, and it's going to be released alongside the new God of War video game that's coming out this year. So that's pretty big. So
well, way to go, Mr. P.
But anywho, but okay, so originally what I was talking about was that there was this these characters that I've been developing since I was like 9 or 10 years old. Originally, it was this guy, Super Guy.
Super Guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he's just this character that wears this helmet, and he gets all of his power from it. It's like this helmet that came to Earth. We don't know where it came from. I always thought of like this character as like this kind of Jocko dude who, is not very smart. Does a lot of things before he even knows what's going to happen.
Sure.
And there's this nerdy guy that's like sort of his friend, but like he just kind of uses him, to get his homework done and to be able to pass college.
Sure.
And
it's like the two characters from Jumanji. Did you see Jumanji, the new one?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay. The two male characters, the kid that the Rock turns into the Rock, and the kid that turns into Kevin Hart.
Oh, okay.
They have that kind of relationship where the Kevin Hart character is a star athlete in high school that's using the kid that would become the Rock to do his homework. They're childhood friends, but they've kind of gone separate directions. So I'm hearing that.
Yeah, this is how it originally played out in my head, and then the nerdy guy ends up finding the helmet, and his Jocko buddy's just like, cool, and like just puts it on, and then and you've come to find out that like he gives him these like magical powers, and it accelerates his whole muscle structure. He's much bigger. He's like 3 times bigger than he was before, or even more. Like I always assumed looked at him as kind of like this Hulk character.
Sure.
That doesn't have the problems of anger like that the Incredible
Hulk.
And then like this his friend kind of becomes like the Arthur character with like it is in the Tick comic and cartoon,
yes.
Where he's also kind of like an inventor, and he like creates like this suit for himself, and he became Flyboy, his sidekick. And I always drew these characters. They were just like quick doodles that I always did. But as time has passed, they've just evolved. Like for instance, at one point, Super Guy was going to be a television show. There was a Fox TV show. They made a pilot. It got passed, but they like had the title Super Guy. So I always thought like, oh well, I need to change his name because like Fox owns it.
Sure.
And now Disney owns it.
Right.
But so then I came up with the helmet. Like let's just like simplify it to the point where it's just like that's where his powers lie, and that's where the mystery lies as well. And then like he kind of evolved into like kind of a more of a sadder character, because I felt like once he put the helmet on, now he can't take it off, and now he's like lost his identity, but is sort of like a good thing, because now that it's like physically changed him so much that other person that he was before, he doesn't even look like that person anymore.
Right.
And so when he becomes this superhero, now his family is not in jeopardy. You know?
Sure.
And like, and I always thought that would be like an interesting I don't know, side plot as well.
A hero who can't reattain his secret identity.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So, and then it got to the point where originally Flyboy was actually a character that was from a video game called Booger Man.
Okay.
A pick and flickin' adventure. and he was originally a villain of Booger Man. And so, and I just like, I don't know, I like that nerdy looking character, so I was just like, I'm gonna make him my own character, and he'll be the sidekick for my big hulky superhero that I draw.
Sure.
And then of course, like, I was just like, man, I need to change that, because that's somebody else's character. So then that's when I came up with the idea for Skeeto, which is like, now he's not a fly, he's like a mutated mosquito guy. Like, maybe, you know, he drank this potion or something, like he's a scientist, and it turned him into this monster, but like he's using his powers or like his abilities for good. And then and that's how and you know, he comes in contact with the Helmet at some point, and then they become like a dynamic duo.
The Helmet and Skeeto.
The Helmet and Skeeto.
Cool. It's got a cool ring to it.
And then recently it evolved from there.
Phase 3.
Phase 3. Because then I was just like, well, wouldn't it be interesting if maybe his the sidekick was a woman, you know? And then playing around with that idea, and then I was just like, when I thought of that, I thought Miss Skeeto. Like,
oh, that's nice! Wow.
And I was like, what
copyright Derk Harron 2017.
How did I not think of that? You know, I just thought that was so cute.
That is super cool.
And then I just thought, like, what if everything that I've already thought of, you know, still pertains to these characters? Maybe that they did have all these adventures together, and everything was fine. And then at some point, you know, Mosquito was hurt, and something happened to the point where, like, you know, she was knocking on death's door, but she had came up with like this potion or formula to like to heal her, but then it mutates her, and then that's how she becomes like this monster in a sense. And and you know, the Helmet kind of blames himself for this mutation. That like here we have like this beautiful girl, woman that you know is done all these great things in her life with him, and like there could have been like, I don't know, some kind of relationship as well.
Sure.
Like I think that the idea of like Mr. Fantastic and the Invisible Woman was just such a cool idea with that family oriented story going along with the superhero story.
Yeah.
So I thought that it would be cool if like the dynamic duo were like a couple as well.
But what if Sue became the Thing? That's basically where you're going.
Yeah.
If she became the monster, which I don't know if has that ever been utilized in popular fiction, where the female lead becomes the monstrosity, or the Mr. Hyde, or the
I don't know if that's been done yet.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, well, maybe She-Hulk, or you know.
But she's still sexy.
Yeah.
You know, she's still drawn in a way that's appealing. Her skin's just green.
Because I feel like it's when this happens, because it doesn't, it takes time. You know, originally she's healed, everything seems fine, and then slowly but surely she starts to mutate into this creature, and then and I've always thought of her like kind of like, you know, the Batman character, and now she's like mutating into more of a Spider-Man character. Now she's taken on, she has these abilities and powers, and now it's gone to the point where you remember in the Spider-Man comics that he grew extra arms, right, and stuff like that. And now we're to that point where she's physically changed, and now people are scared of her, and you know, in a sense, like, now she's back to Batman, because, like, people fear Batman. Sure. To the point where he is almost like this creature of the night, and now she's that as well, but physically changed. Yeah. To the point where people think that she's, like, horrifying looking. And then and so there's that kind of story going on with her, but then I always felt like the Helmet is like this grieving character that, like, blames himself for this mutation, and then I think that at first she didn't blame him. Mm-hmm. This was something that, like, but over time, you know, I think it her mind changes. Sure, I was going to say she's evolving into that more animal brain. Right. And then, and I think that at some point, yeah, she becomes the villain, you know? And I think that would be just this, like, interesting relationship where, you know, for so many years they were so close to together and doing good, and now she the animal instinct takes over, and to the point now where she feels that, like, this version of herself is the ideal version of what the human race could become. Sure. That she's evolved past them, and now she. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Species or Species 2. But this is the Magneto argument, too, basically, that humans will evolve into something greater. And so then she wants to breed and, like, to find, you know, and I don't think that whoever she injects the mutation into to allow him to change as well, just so that they can breed, that character won't be... maybe be a pivotal character, but I think that it's just, for instance, like, with I've done a little research on mosquitoes and how the male mosquito doesn't live as long as a female, like, and pretty much after he mates, like, that's it. You know? Oh, man. Can you imagine? And I always thought that, like, male mosquitoes don't drink blood, too. Oh, is that right? Yeah. It's just the female mosquitoes. It's just females, because females need the blood for the proteins to feed to their babies. So I thought that would be interesting, too, is that she's, like, fighting this hunger that she has as well. Kind of like the Blade character. Sure. Can you imagine, though, you're the male mosquito? Is there any stronger deterrent for premature ejaculation than knowing you will die very shortly after? It would be funny, though. Like, maybe there's, like, this super fan. Like, sure. And that's like, I love you so much. I don't care what you look like. Right. And I've been dreaming about this since I was a kid. Yeah. And then she just takes advantage of it. Right. And it's like, well, then become me. Yeah. And lures him in, and then, like, kills him after. Wow. After the insemination. Yes. Yeah. Wow. And then where Helmet plays a role in all this is that, he's sort of banished himself from the Earth. He feels that he can do more harm to the Earth than help it, and so I feel I came up with this idea that they created this prison on the moon where all of his character, all the supervillains, stay. Sure. Like that. Like he's like literally like, no, I won't. People think you're insane. Right. But it's like an Arkham asylum on the moon. Wow, that's actually a great idea. Grant Morrison put the Justice League on the moon, and it's interesting that
the superpowered types that should be isolated from humanity in that way are the most dangerous ones, not the ones that have the mind to be most helpful. So they watched Earth like gods, when in reality that should be where the prison is, you know?
And so I thought, like, that would be like a cool idea of, like, he's literally banished himself to the prison that he's, like, put all these bad guys on. So now he has to live out the rest of his life with the villains.
Kind of its perpetual warden, then.
Right.
Okay. That's
but
cool.
but he's constantly having to deal with these dudes on a daily basis, and so in a way that keeps him busy. He's just beating up bad guys like every day. That's what he would have been doing, but at least now it's separated from Earth, and there won't be any more destruction and no more civil lives will be hurt in the process. But once he gets word that Mosquito is out taking over the world with her babies and everything, now he has to go back. But it's to the point where, like,
and maybe ask some of those supervillains to help him.
Yes, and I thought that would be great.
Yeah.
Now it turns into like this prison break.
Sure.
Where he has to use the help of these supervillains that he's been fighting all these years.
Right.
To break out.
You guys want early parole? You gotta come with me to Earth.
And then it's to the point where, like, that they agree with him. It's just like, well, there's if we did break out, like, where would we go?
Right.
If the world gets taken over, then like, what are we gonna do? So in a sense, like, now the supervillains have to become like heroes of the Earth,
anti-heroes. So they still have a place to pillage and commit crimes when they do finally have freedom. Wow. So yeah, it's a big story, but I just love how that originally, it was just like these two characters. Sure.
I think I did this. My first little mini comic that I did with Super Guy, the villain was called Le Shoe Man, and he was this guy that, like, literally has like a boot on the top of his head and is obsessed with shoes.
Okay.
And uses shoes as weapons and stuff like that. And and I even thought, like, it would be a great way to start out a comic with, like, maybe this fat guy that like Le Shoe Man, like, put these shoes on him so he can't. It turns into the Speed type of situation where he has to keep walking, or he has to like walk at a certain speed or run, and like
he's power walking. Yeah.
And so police is like following him and trying to figure out a way of how do we get these shoes off. And then that enter Mosquito, where she's able to lift him up out of the shoes, and they're able to contain the explosion of the shoes. But here we see the monster come out of the shadows, and people get to see her again and see that, like, wow, she's really
look what she's become.
Because because it's gotten to the point where it's like, where did our superheroes go?
Right.
And then incoming Mosquito, and now we see, like, oh geez, this is what she is.
This is where our superheroes went.
Yeah. And then some fat guy, like, that is gross looking is just like repulsed by her.
Yeah. And he's the villain.
And then just to think that, like, there still is, like, those supervillains around, but the bad ones that, like, have killed people.
Sure, they're up on the moon with the helmet.
But
you still have these kind of cheeseball, gimmicky villains running around, playing like it's the old days.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's a cool idea, too.
Yeah. So
I think what you've just described in the evolution of these characters is a representation of the golden age, the silver and bronze age, and the modern age of comics. You really have developed these characters into a natural progression through those eras, whether you realize it or not. And something you can do is have all of those elements, from the two kids in high school to the to the romance turned Beauty and the Beast story, where she's the Beast, you could have all of that exist in one timeline simply by implying that when that kid put the helmet on, it gave him immortality. So if that innocent story of two kids in the suburbs going to school together happened in the 50s.
Right.
That's the gee whiz era of the golden and silver age. As you evolve more into the Bronze Age with Marvel Comics and scientifically oriented origins for superheroes, there's the guy that creates the potion.
Yeah.
Now as you're in a more modern age, a little more progressive, there's a strong female lead. The science is still in there, but the power of contemporary fantasy and the monstrosity of things that we embrace nowadays could be in there too. It all exists, and the through line is the helmet.
Yeah.
So that's great. Brilliant, man. It's really cool because you can tell corny stories, you can tell darker stories. You kind of described the last story of the helmet, what with his isolation on the moon and eventual return to Earth to fight his former partner, lover, maternal influence, whatever.
Yeah.
And I mean, what a dynamic way to either have him pass away during the fight and then bequeath the helmet to somebody else, or find a new place on Earth as the hero that brings back that age of good guys.
Right.
There's just a lot of potential there. I mean,
thanks, man.
It's really cool.
I appreciate it. I have all these stories that roll around in my head, and that's what this show's all about. Is just talking it out with somebody.
Sure.
Other than just keeping it bottled in. And I don't know. Like I also feel that I just don't have as much confidence with some of the stories that I've come up with, and like I said. It was just these like corny characters that are very one-dimensional, and yeah, that's really cool how you bracketed it in the different eras of comic books that the golden age, and that's how I saw those characters at first, and I think that's the birth of all these great characters that we have now, and how they were one-dimensional.
Sure.
In a sense, and now and with time passing, like, look how much they've evolved, and look where their stories have gone, and I feel like that's what's happened with my characters in my head.
Sure. Well, absolutely. I mean, when I'm struggling with a story in general, I try to define it in 3 parts. I try to introduce the problem, complicate the problem, and then resolve the problem. Now, that's probably like, storytelling 101. But I didn't take any classes or study under Mr. Tony Parker like somebody else in the room. To learn those tenets, I just watched movies and read books and comic books, and listened to stories in general that I really like a lot. I listened to the same stories, read the same books a lot to determine why is this so timeless or poignant to me. And I realized there's a 3-act structure here.
Right.
Dark Knight Returns being one of my favorite comic books of all time. The Usual Suspects is a great movie, one of my favorites of all time. Trying to think of some other examples. They just work in excellent 3-part structures.
Right.
Where, again, in the first 20, 30 minutes of a movie, if you don't have a concept of what the hero's end goal is, why they want to save the day, and what the stakes are, that's not a great story. That's why Ang Lee's Hulk is terrible, because 20 minutes into that movie, Bruce Banner's just riding his bike to work, and it's like, where's the Hulk? Whereas Edward Norton's Hulk, right away that he is tempering this beast inside of him, and he's looking at a stopwatch, and he's drop of blood goes into the soda bottle, and he's chasing after it. You know what I mean? Like, okay, here's the problem. There's this thing he is trying to contain.
Right.
And that might be two sides of the spectrum because one's an origin story and the other's not. But it just goes to show how it grips the reader. Mm-hmm. You know, you could have all these great visuals. Ang Lee's an amazing director. But, you know, ultimately watching moss grow on a rock as a visual symbol of what the Hulk is doing to Banner's body, I don't care if I don't see the Hulk fighting or punching something. You know what I mean? I came here for progression, not, photography. I don't know what he was doing. Cinematography, I guess, with a movie like that. So in your case with the helmet, that's definitely there, where you have a kid in high school that finds the helmet, the jock becomes the humble hero, the brooder that realizes, man, if I hadn't found this thing, where would my life be? Mm-hmm. Now that I have this thing, I can't achieve that potential, but my character is better. Mm-hmm. And it just puts you into this perpetual state of self-reflection. Meanwhile, you're a superhero doing great things to save the earth. As you get into that second act, as you described, where Flyboy becomes Skeeto, there's that influence of science and drinking the potion, and you could have this moment where if the helmet is taking on a new sidekick, if Flyboy is transitioning to the same guy or a different character that's going to chug this potion, the helmet knows more than anyone, hey, once you do that, you may never be the same. I can't take this helmet off. You drink that potion, you may never go back to normalcy or humanity.
Well, but that's the thing, is it's either live or die,
right?
And that's what she comes to a realization of, is that this will keep me alive, but I don't know how it will affect me.
Right.
And then dealing with that choice that she made.
Right. That's the helmet's question, is if your life has been fulfilling, is this a noble death? Or do you gamble with prolonging your life at the risk of becoming something different, and you'll wish you have died. You know what I mean? And that's how The Dark Knight Returns begins, is Bruce Wayne racing cars and saying, this would be a good death, not good enough, but I can, and I think that's the dilemma a lot of heroes face is, are you going to die fighting some mugger in the street, or are you going to die protecting the Earth from an invasion? And so that's the situation Miss Skeeto might find herself in, is, I could die now a noble hero, or I could drink this thing and, heaven forbid, I become a beast, but I'm still alive. Well, is that the life you'd want to live after this point? Becoming my arch rival?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's an interesting dilemma. That's what Frank Miller tried to do with Dick Grayson when he wrote and drew Dark Knight Strikes Again. That ends with, Dick being a shape-shifting supervillain.
Right.
Kind of silly, but, it just begs the question, geez, would this kid be better off in short pants? Is that is Dick Grayson just as best as he could be as Robin, in that story? So,
well, thanks for being on the show, man.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I think I knew that this story was perfect for you. I think that you're a guy that knows comic books so well, and in the history of all these different characters from all these different universes and publishers, and so I think that I'm very humbled to hear that you dig it.
Oh yeah, I definitely dig it.
So, well, thanks for listening in. This is the end of the third episode of Here Comes the Pitch. The next episode we'll have Russ back, and he'll pitch me something.
Cool. Okay.
So,
sounds like a plan.
So, see you next time. Or whatever. I don't know.